We have all heard about the Mandarin Chinese, but do you know the Mandarins were initially invaders? In 1644, Qing dynasty was formed by the Manchu invaders. After 300 years, they become true Chinese and give rise to the term Mandarin. Welcome to the Chinese beginner class. I want to cover something that is unusual. For example, Chinese fonts, how to type Chinese in a computer, Chinese dialects, Chinese idioms, and where the Mandarins come from, Beijing. I want to give you some background so that when you are learning Chinese, you feel more comfortable. The objective of this class include the following. It should be a very broad survey orientation class for Chinese learners. I want to cover both lessons and some history so that you have the broader background. Ultimately, I want to help the Chinese learners by having a better roadmap when you're learning Chinese from anyone. This is the outline of the Chinese crash course. We'll first talk about who invented Pinyin, because Pinyin is a way that Westerners learn Chinese. Pinyin is a way that the Chinese language is labeled by sound. We have consonants and vowels. Bo, po, mo, fo, de, te, ne, le, ge, ke, he, ji, qi, xi, zhi, chi, shi, ri, zi, ci, si, i, u, and the vowels. A, o, I, a, ao, o, an, en, ang, eng, i, ya, ye, yao, yu, yan, yin, yang, ying, u, wa, wo, wai, wi, wan, yun, yang, ang, yong, yu, yue, yun. Now rest assured, not even all the Chinese can pronounce all the sounds correctly. This is what we call Mandarin Chinese, or 普通话, standardized Chinese. It is derived from the Beijing area, Peking. Now Chinese is a daunting language. We have 23 consonants and 33 vowels. You can make up about 700 sound combinations. And out of every combination, you can have 4 tones. That makes about 3,000 unique sounds. And with each sound, you can have many characters. The characters can form phrases, and phrases can form idioms. The Chinese people have had 5,000 years to develop the language. No wonder it is rather complex. And history written. For example, 枪, qiang, qiang. We have another video dedicated to this sound. First tone, 枪, qiang, qiang. Second tone, 强. Third tone, 抢. Fourth tone, 呛. Now you notice that some sounds have multiple characters, and those characters can form phrases. For example, 强 can be paired with 大, big, to form 强大, strong. You can pair 强 with 好. In fact, here it's 好. So 好强 means aspirational. The same character can have different sound. 强 can also be pronounced 犟. It can be paired with another character 倔. 倔强 means stubborn in a good way. There are many pinyin tables out there. Some call them initials, finals. They're just consonants and vowels. And in some tables, the whole syllabus are isolated, but they are still just vowels. Now, the reason why China has to develop Pinyin and standardized Chinese is just because Chinese is not standardized. China looks like a monolithic country, but it actually has many, many different regions. There are many regions in China with different dialects. For example, in the Beijing area, When you say hello, is 你好. This is quite familiar to many people. In the Canton area, in the Guangdong area, near the tropics and Vietnam, when people say hello, is 你好. And in the Shanghai area, people would say 侬好. And if you go to other regions, they might have a different sounding dialect. For example, people instead of saying 你好, they will say 你好. The word Mandarin comes from Manchu. So Manchu is this region in China. It is now called the northeastern region of China, but it used to be a different country. In 190 BC, for example, China is made up with even more number of smaller countries, and every country have its own language, its own dialect. The Putong language, or standardized language, is typically associated with Mandarins. And Mandarins are the Qing dynasty invaders who later on become officials in China. They live in Beijing. They basically dictate how the Chinese was spoken. In some parts of China, the Mandarin Chinese is called Guanhua. Guan means officials, and Hua means language. Those are Chinese spoken by officials or people from Beijing. And I'm from Beijing, so my Chinese is rather standard. The Beijing region has been the center of power for about 500, 600 years. It is centered in a place called the Forbidden Palace. The Forbidden Palace looks like a Chinese character, Gong. You can see the roof radicals, and you can see the courtyard radicals. So Gong means palace. You can have Guan. It has the same radicals, except it is a vertical line. Guan basically means officials from the Forbidden City. Man, as in Mandarin, is a region that typically means northeast of China. This is a Man region, and people from the Man region are called Mandarins. A man named Zhou Youguang invented the Pinyin system in 1949. He actually came back to China from New York City. He was a stock trader. His name, Zhou Youguang, can mean having light. So you is half and light. The Pinyin system was actually very useful to help the Chinese learn Chinese. Otherwise, many Chinese wouldn't be able to recognize the Chinese that other people are saying. In 1958, the literacy rate in China was 15%. In 2015, the literacy rate is 96%. And a lot of it is attributed to the system of Pinyin. Pinyin was invented for the Chinese to learn Chinese. If you are a Westerner from another foreign country, you might be able to speak perfect Chinese just by recognizing Pinyin. For example, if you know Pinyin from this paragraph, you can speak perfect Chinese. 人在不信神的社会中长大，根本就不大相信。But you may not know anything about what it means. On the other hand, this correlates to Chinese characters. And some of them are characters, some of them are phrases. I actually recognize the Pinyin system is much like the music notes. Musicians use notes to denote sound. The second part of the crash course are the characters. The Chinese character can be either classic or simplified. You can have classic, what's called 繁体, or you can have simplified, 简体, simple, complex. This happened around after the Chinese Communist Party took over power in the People's Republic of China, or mainland China. Today, most Chinese people are familiar and can recognize both types of Chinese. This is 声 sound, 飞 fly, and 亏 to lose. Chinese characters can be very simple. For example, 一 one or 二 two, and it can be much more complex, like 四 meaning four, 鹅 meaning goose, 随 or 堕 like in fall, or 折 折 means the track. There are some super complex Chinese characters. Those are actually made up. Those are not real Chinese word, and they are used for special purposes. Chinese characters are made of strokes and radicals. You can write a Chinese character by using strokes, horizontal, vertical, and so on, a dot. Or you can recognize them as radicals. This radical is 月, moon. This radical actually represents body or flesh. This word, for example, 脉, this means pulse. And this word comprised of two radicals. If you recognize it has the radical of flesh, then you know it has something to do with physiology. Other languages that learn from the Chinese also has its radicals. For example, in Japanese, sushi can be written as this word, and it has two radicals. The left one represents fish, and the right one really doesn't mean too much, except it means oily. In Japanese, sushi can mean oily fish, which is kind of correct. Now the third part, Chinese font and calligraphy. In English and other Western languages, people use fonts regularly. Chinese also has fonts. As you can see here, there are different kinds of Chinese fonts. Li font, Kai font, Xing font, or Cao font. Those different fonts are written by brushes. You can type those characters on a computer as well. For example, you can have different fonts typed on a computer. The Chinese people only have had Western writing instrument for about 100 years. Before that, all the writing was done in a brush. The brush and ink system has been used for thousands of years. This forms the basis of calligraphy. Calligraphy is both a way of communication and a form of art. If you have a chance to go to China, you'll see calligraphy of famous people hanging at different places, even at historical parks. The founder of the People's Republic of China, Mao Zedong, is famous for his calligraphy. His calligraphy has a unique font that is only used by himself. If you go to Beijing and other places in China, a lot of the plaques of important places are written by Mao Zedong, like Tsinghua University. The old style gate of Tsinghua University, you can see, have a different style of the same word. This is a picture from a commencement ceremony of Tsinghua University. You can see Chinese people mix different fonts together. This is Li Shu together with Mao's calligraphy. If you go to a restaurant, for example, Peking Garden, you're going to see the word Beijing, Northern Capital, written in different fonts. Interestingly enough, when the Chinese people came to the United States, for the first time, they were using the Chinese brush pen to write English letters. This forms a special form of font that is no longer used. Now I'm going to show you how the Chinese people type Chinese on a computer. Most of the modern computer systems allow input and display of Chinese, both simplified and original. First, set up the language. Go to Windows Setup, and you can go to the language setting. You can look at what language you currently have, and then you can add new languages to the setup. Now go to the lower right-hand corner of a Windows, and you can select the language to use. After that, you can type away in any kind of app, for example, in a PowerPoint. If you just type in 墙, it's English. But if you switch it to the Chinese mode, it will give you suggestions based on the pinyin that you input. You can pick a character or pick a phrase with a number or your mouse. Let me show you how. Now we're going to talk about Chinese phrases. The Chinese language not only uses single characters, but a lot of characters are paired together. We mentioned the word 强. You can have 坚强, 逞强, 强大, 强盗, and 倔强. 坚强 means strong. 逞强 means pretending to be strong, bluffing. 强大 means strong and big. 强盗 means robbers. And 倔强 means stubborn or determined. What makes Chinese character more interesting is idioms. Those are special four-character combinations. For example, 心想事成, 一心一意, 三心二意, 马到成功. The Chinese uses special phrases very frequently, like Americans use idioms. 心想事成 means heart, think, and mission accomplished. 一心一意 means one heart, one aim. 三心二意 means distracted. Three hearts, two aims. 马到成功, ma is horse. Horse arrived. Success. 成功 is actually a phrase made of two characters. Chinese language have a different syntax than Western languages. For example, in English we say, how are you? Or howdy. In Chinese, it's 你好吗? It literally translates into, you okay, right? Instead of, how are you? The you is the first part that's mentioned. That's a key word. Here's another example. I don't know. In English, 我不知道. I know no. 我 means I, 不 means no. 知道 is a phrase for no. I have covered something unusual for the first-time Chinese learners. Chinese is a very rich and complex language, but I believe that as long as you put your heart and mind to it, 一心一意, you're going to be very successful. We have other videos, for example, complete Pinyin charts and Chinese calligraphy demo. Thank you very much. See you next time.